Today, I want to talk about the most important number that you need to know, either if you're in retirement or you're thinking about retirement. And almost everyone gets this number wrong. So in just a minute, I'm going to talk about why this number is so important and how to get your number right or as close to being right as possible. And I'm going to give you an easier way to help expedite finding out your number. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Before I dive in, over the past few years, I've been developing a retirement planning system, focusing on the key essential elements that you need to focus on when you are building a retirement plan. And so this summer, I'm going to do a deep dive into some of those key areas to help you as you're putting your own retirement plan together. And today is going to be one of those videos, and we'll be releasing a few more throughout the summer. So if you're not a current subscriber, go ahead and ding that bell, hit the subscribe button so you'll be alerted when the next video comes out. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to put everything into a playlist so you can binge it from start to finish, all the key components to help you develop your own retirement plan. I've heard binge watching my videos is excellent for insomniacs. So if you're struggling with sleeping, even if you're not thinking about retirement, go ahead and fire up that playlist. So what is this all important number, the number that you cannot retire without that everyone gets wrong? And that number is how much money do you spend? Anytime I develop a retirement plan, I'll begin by asking, how much do you think you'll spend in retirement? Or how much are you currently spending? And people will give me a rough estimate. They'll say, I think I need about $10,000 a month to live. And then when we dig into the numbers, many people are spending way more money than they realize. And if you've ever put together a retirement plan using your favorite retirement software, you know that just a small change in the spending can take a wildly successful plan and completely derail it. So let's say you plan on spending $9,000 a month, but you actually spend $11,000 a month. That takes a plan that's going to be successful and has it run out of money mid-retirement. And so it's really important that you figure out how much money does it cost for you to live before you take the plunge into retirement. So today I want to give you a general philosophy around retirement spending. And then I want to go through some of the key categories that people spend money on to help make sure you're accounting for this. And then when possible, I'll provide information from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics on what the average household spends in that category, so you'll be able to benchmark your own spending. So to determine how much money you'll need to spend in retirement, you need to first of all figure out how much does your current lifestyle cost you. And to figure that out, you'll probably need to start tracking your expenses fairly closely, at least for 3 to 6 months. So you can begin to see some overall patterns on what does your current lifestyle cost you to live. Now, retirement spending is going to look different than your pre-retirement spending for a number of reasons. First of all, there are going to be certain categories you're going to spend way more money in. So for example, you're probably going to spend a lot more money in travel and leisure because for the first time in your life, you actually have time to travel and do leisurely activities, right? The thing you've told yourself for years you're going to learn to do, whether that's golf or pickleball, now you have time to do it. And so you may spend or probably will spend more money in travel and leisure. Then other categories are going to go down, right? If you've been commuting to work every day for 30 years and now you don't have to drive into the office anymore, you're going to save money on transportation costs, less wear and tear on the car, and maybe you'll spend less money on food because now you're not paying to go out to lunch every day. So some of those costs are going to come down. And then some costs are going to disappear completely. For example, you've been putting away money in a 401k for 30 years. You no longer have to contribute to that 401k. So that cost is going to completely go away. And so I encourage people as they're trying to figure out how much it's going to cost to live during retirement, you need to look at your pay stub. What is your work paying for? Things like, healthcare, dental, vision, but also there could be fringe benefits like a gym membership or maybe your cell phone, or I don't know what it is. So make sure you're looking at your pay stubs so you can make sure you're accounting for things that are currently subsidized by your employer. So now I want to walk through some of the key expenses and give you an idea of what the average person spends in these categories. Now, I'm not going to have data on each category, but where I can, I'm going to give you an idea using the data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics on what the average person spends. Now, before I dive into the specifics, I want to give you 3 buckets that I want you to kind of think about as you go through these categories. The first bucket is your essential expenses. These are the things that you just can't live without, right? You have to pay your property tax, you have to have food, you have to have healthcare. These are things that you just can't cut from your budget. The next bucket is discretionary spending. That's the Netflix membership, your gym membership, going out to eat. It's things that make life more enjoyable, but they're not absolute necessities. And then the third bucket is lifestyle. These are not necessarily reoccurring expenses or monthly expenses, but they're things you want to do in retirement. So maybe $20,000 a year on travel and $10,000 a year to the grandkids 529 plan. And then, buying a boat or an RV, whatever those things are that you want to make sure you account for when you're building a retirement plan. And so again, you want to think about which expenses are fixed. These are essential. I cannot live without them. Which expenses are discretionary. Life is nice with them, but if I had to cut them, it's okay. And then the lifestyle bucket. And then with the essential bucket and the discretionary, I would try to give it a percentage. Which percentage of your expenses are fixed, essential, you can't cut? Say it's 70%. So if you have a $10,000 a month budget, 70% or $7,000, there's no give, there's no leeway. And then the other $3,000 is discretionary. You could pull back in an emergency if you needed to. And we'll use those percentages later on in the planning process. So now let's dive into the various categories. The first category and the most expensive category overall for retirees is housing. Now I know many of you have paid off your house, but there are still a lot of expenses that go along with homeownership. And so on average, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they found that the average person age 65 and older spend about $19,000 a year on housing. This represents about 36% of the average retiree's expense. Even if you have your home paid off, there are a lot of expenses that you want to make sure you're accounting for. For example, homeowners insurance, and homeowners insurance keeps going up. Property tax. In many areas of the country, property tax continues to rise. And then there are home maintenance costs. And some of this may be stuff you are currently doing, but you also want to take into account home repairs. Things are going to break. As you age, your home is aging, and the refrigerator is aging, and the washer and dryer are aging, and the dishwasher is aging. And it's going to cost to replace those things. And some of those items you've been able to fix yourself. So this past year, I've had to replace a hot water heater, and I've had to replace a refrigerator, and the washing machine went out twice, and I was able to fix it, saving a $400 service call. But at some point, you're not going to be able to fix things that go on the fritz. And so you want to make sure you're accounting for the cost of getting your washer and dryer repaired or buying a new one. Also think about HOA fees. Do you have HOA fees? And then furniture, especially if you're planning on moving to a new home or to a new state, you want to make sure you account for furniture costs for the new house. So even if you have your home paid off, you want to make sure you're accounting for all the other expenses. And for many people, they'll find that even if they have a mortgage payment, that the other costs are as expensive, if not more expensive than the mortgage payment. Next, we have transportation. The average retiree spends about $7,000 in this category. This is auto maintenance, gas, parking, insurance, if you have a car payment, just all the things that it takes to get you from point A to point B. And so on the national average, people spend about $7,000 on transportation. Next is food. Food is a large part of your budget. You have to have food. On average, retirees spend about $6,500 a year on food. That's both groceries for eating at home and eating out. And one of the things I've noticed is that many people in the first few years of retirement actually eat out more than they did pre-retirement. And so as you're thinking about this budget line item for food, maybe give yourself a bit more room for eating out. The next expense is utilities. And for a lot of retirees, they see this expense go up in retirement because particularly if you and your spouse have both been working for the past 30 years, that means the air conditioning and the water heater and all these things are not running throughout the day. But now that you're home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to be running the air conditioning more, you're going to run the heat more, you're going to have more hot water, probably more dishes. And so often people see their utility expenses increase in retirement. On average, retirees spend about $4,000 a year on utilities, things like gas and electric and home oil or waste disposal, sewage. Depending on where you live, it's going to look different, but about $4,000 on average. The next cost is healthcare expenses. In retirement, the average American spends around $7,000 each year, or 13.5% of their overall expenses on healthcare. When I'm putting together a retirement plan, I calculate on a minimum of $12,000 to $13,000 a year in healthcare expenses for a couple, $6,000 to $7,000 a year for a single person. You want to make sure you're accounting for insurance premiums. You want to make sure you're accounting for Medicare premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, dental, vision, All these things, they add up. And then as an aside, on top of all of that, you also need to start thinking about long-term care costs. And long-term care costs have skyrocketed in recent years. So make sure you're at least thinking about that as you're putting together your retirement budget. Next, you have your connectivity charge. I don't know what to call this category, but you've got television, home internet, streaming services, cable, all those type of things. And I'd guesstimate you'll probably spend about $2,500 to $3,000 a year on all those different connectivity charges. Another giant expense in retirement is going to be taxes. And that's going to vary on your situation, but for many people, they'll spend $1 million+ in retirement on taxes. And then you've got travel expenses to go see the grandkids and to go to graduations and weddings and all those things you've looked forward to doing. You're going to need to make sure that you've accounted for those, and then taking those trips that you've always planned on doing. And then entertainment or leisure, right? Golf, movies, museums. I don't know what your entertainment thing is, but make sure you account for entertainment in retirement. And then for some of you, charitable giving is going to be a large percentage of your budget. And then gifts to family, and then just general household expenses, things like, I don't know, laundry detergent and dishwasher soap, and just the general things that it kind of takes to keep your house running. And so I'd encourage you, if you're retired or nearing retirement or thinking about retirement, closely track your expenses for 3 to 6 months to make sure you're properly accounting for everything. And then once again, make sure you break it out into discretionary expenses, essential expenses, and then lifestyle expenses. Now, some of you right now are super excited. You're like, I've already done this. I have a spreadsheet. Let me show you my Excel spreadsheet. I have everything dialed in. For those of you who are a bit overwhelmed, you don't have that giant spreadsheet, you're thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to track all this. I want to give you a cheat code, and it's something called Monarch Money. For years, probably since 2006, my wife and I had used mint.com to track our spending. We've never been big budgeters, but we like to know where our money is going. And so we've used mint.com just to automatically track all that. But then Mint went out of business. They closed down. And so we had to find a new service. And so we looked at a couple different apps to track our spending. And the one we settled on was called Monarch Money. Now you have to pay a monthly or annual fee, but in my opinion is worth every penny. I'll show you a demo environment in just a minute. And this is not a sponsored post, although if you want Monarch Money, if you're watching and you want to sponsor, hit me up. But one of the things I really like about Monarch, and one of my struggles with mint.com and some of the other things I've used in the past, but when you connect your accounts, you use these aggregators. They help make it much safer, and there's a variety of them. There's 4 or 5 different aggregators out there. The 2 biggest are Plaid and Yodlee. The problem is that they'll connect with some banks, but not with others. So Plaid is great at connecting with a certain list of banks, and Yodlee is great at connecting with another list of banks, but nobody seems to be able to connect with everything. And so it's really frustrating when you're trying to connect all of your accounts and track your spending, and you get 70% of your accounts entered and the other 30% won't connect. And this was a constant issue with mint.com. Well, what I like about Monarch, you can try Plaid. Just Plaid, connect the account. Nope, that doesn't work. Let's try Yodlee. Oh, that doesn't work. Let's go to the next one. And they have 4 or 5 of these integrators. And for the first time in my life, I was able to get all of my accounts connected, which made it so much easier to track spending. And so now I'm going to flip over to my other screen, and I'm going to just quickly look at a demo environment and kind of show you what it looks like to track your spending. So here we are in a demo environment. When you log in, you can see how much money how much income you've had coming in this month, what your expenses are. You can track your net worth. You can see your spending this month compared to the prior month. You can see your most recent transactions, but let's click over into here into accounts. And so you can connect your bank account, you can connect your credit card, you can connect your investment accounts. And so it's aggregating everything into one place. And then you can see all of your different transactions. So you can see your paycheck, you can see your State Farm costs, your student loan payments, your Peloton, your fitness. And you can go through and you can then, change it, actually that Wells Fargo is supposed to be an auto payment. And so it's easy to track your expenses. And then you can come down here into cash flow and you can look at how much money did I spend, each month, how much money did I spend last month? What percentage of my budget was my mortgage? What percentage was auto payments? And you can edit these up. So you can add or subtract. You can also group things out. So if you wanted to do discretionary, lifestyle, and essential, you could then put a group and have those 3 groups, and you could see automatically what percentage of what I'm spending is a essential expense and then which is discretionary. Now, sometimes, food, for example, can go either way. And so maybe you have 2 different food categories. You have a grocery category, and then you have a category for eating out. And then you can also go over here and look by merchant. And so you can start seeing like I'm spending way too much money at, Whole Foods or the local coffee shop. And then you can go through and you can run reports. There's all kinds of reports you can run on cash flow and spending. So you can kind of see a pie chart. You can see the change over time. So you can see, in December, I spent this much money, but in January, I spent this much money. And then also, I've not used this feature much, but you can come in here and budget, and you can see I still have $3,000 left to budget and how you're doing compared to your budget. You can go in here and set reoccurring charges. You can create goals. You can track your investments. In my opinion, Monarch Money is the best product I found for tracking expenses. And I'll leave a link in the description below. I think you'll get a free trial and then 50% off the first year if it works the way I hope it works. So if that doesn't work, don't yell at me, but I think I can get you a link with that discount. And so what I like about the software is it's highly customizable, right? So if there's a category that is not accounted for, you can go ahead and put it here, add it, let's say coffee. It's a big one in my line item. And then you can put it in a group. You can exclude it from the budget flow. So you can then see, how much you spent each, looking at various months. You can come in here and click. And then you can go down and see in April, I had $8,400 in income. My expenses were $5,200. My savings rate was 37%. So I saved 37% of what I earned. And you can come look down here and you could go by category. So this is a bit broader. So you've got mortgage and groceries and auto payments and home improvement, or you can go to group. And so that takes that mortgage and that home improvement and it puts it together in one. Then you can click and come down and look at what the actual expenses are in that group or in that category, which I think is really helpful. So I've looked at a lot of these softwares and I think Monarch is the easiest to use and has the most potential. They still have issues. I have occasionally had an account I connected, disconnect, and I had to reconnect it, but it works with my Apple credit card, which almost nobody else works with. And so if you're struggling to know exactly what you're spending, I would really encourage you to do this for 3 months or 6 months, really pay attention and use that to create a baseline to then develop the rest of your retirement plan, or maybe to adjust your spending. If you can spend about $8,000 in retirement and you find out you're actually spending $10,000 to $11,000 and you're drawing down your retirement savings quicker than you should be, then by tracking your expenses, you'll be able to see, oh, I am in trouble because I'm spending more than I realized I was spending. And sometimes it just kind of sneaks up on us. So like I said, I'm not a great budgeter, but I try to pay attention to where my money is going, because one of the things I've discovered is if you don't pay attention, it just kind of creeps away from you. And so, one of the things I try to do is pay attention. Do I have any reoccurring expenses on this account? People love to set up reoccurring charges. Is there anything I'm paying for that I'm not actually using? Do I ever watch Netflix? Do I ever go to that gym? So just make sure you're reviewing it to make sure there are no leaks in your bucket and you're not wasting money on subscriptions that you don't need. So I'm going to leave it there, but just as a reminder, understanding your expenses is crucial to a successful retirement plan, because if your expenses get too out of control, it can derail even the best retirement plan. So make sure you know where your money is going and you have a realistic budget for how much you're going to spend during retirement. Unless you really have it dialed in, I would be tempted to overestimate what you're going to spend. And once again, even if budgeting isn't your thing, make sure you are tracking your expenses just for a short period of time to make sure you're not forgetting anything. Thanks again for watching. I'm going to go ahead and link to that playlist I mentioned at the beginning. This is going to be my full retirement planning system, things you need to think about as you put together your retirement plan. It's not fully built out yet. I'll be adding more things to it throughout the summer, but you can go ahead and watch what's in there now.